Hello, you're listening to Otaku Spirit Animecast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is our fall 2023 anime season reviews. It's over. Well, it's not actually over. There's like a couple more shows left to finish up, but we pretty much got a complete season. It's time to move on to winter and do the first impressions and all that kind of stuff for that one. It just keeps going. Thankfully, unlike most seasons, at the end of fall, we get a week off so we can breathe, and Chris can get caught up. It's like I'm happy because I'm getting to the point where now I can have like a little bit of a break, but Chris has got like all this stuff to catch up on. Or are you pretty much done with what you're gonna watch?
There's a couple of shows that I kind of like to catch up on, but we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, I just have Faraway Paladin, Tear Moon, and what's the other one I was saying? I forget. There's a third one, but other than that, I'm done. And then I technically have to do my top of fall, which I should release this week, and then I have to do my best of the year, and then we got to do deliberations, and it keeps going. It's always the fun end of the year, but yeah, still in fall. We got our reviews to do. Hopefully we can get them done in maybe 2 or 3 podcasts, but we'll see. We'll just pace it out as we go. We don't like to rush them and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, as per usual, at talkspirit.com, that's where you can go for all of our links, social media links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us, including Patreon, tips, links, all that good stuff. Greatly appreciate it, but it supports the channel, keeps us going. But let's jump into it. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's kick off things with the biggest show of the season, obviously. The number one anime of the season. 100 Girlfriends Who Really Love You. You got to do it 5 times, otherwise the chair gets mad at you.
Yep.
We found that out. We found out why it's 5 times. Otherwise, you're not actually saying that you love somebody. So if you ever say that you love somebody, make sure you say it 5 times. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. But yes, this was done by Biberi Animation Studios, based on a manga comedy slice of life. They already have an announcement for a second season. We got teases for most of the girls, at least some of them, anyways. I don't know. Maybe second season they'll just like release a whole crap ton of girls and the what 4, possibly 5 they tease at the end might be. Maybe they're not girlfriends. I mean, they did technically show the teacher again, the principal lady, and she might not be one. She could be. I was joking about when she first showed up. I'm like, watch she be one. Could possibly still be one. But yes, for those who don't know, 100 Girlfriends Who Really Love You opens up with what was his name? Rentaro. I don't know why I forgot his name. I'm covering a lot of shows. Rentaro, and Rentaro has tried to get girlfriends many times. It was like ever since he was like 2 years old. Like it showed him like a little kid, and he's like flirting with some girl, and she's like no, and she like dumped him. So yeah, his entire life he's been spending trying to find a girlfriend, and they've been rejected every single time. And it seems like there was something working against him, because the one girl, recent girl that he did confess to, it was like she really liked him. But then she's like, no, it can't happen. And she goes and she walks off. So it felt like something was wrong. But he goes up going to this one shrine where he does a prayer, and Kami-sama shows up. And Kami-sama says, yeah, he kind of explains how soulmates work. Like, yeah, sometimes for men, it takes longer for them to find that one person. Whereas women, usually they react to it very quickly. Like they get that sense very quickly. And oh yeah, by the way, I screwed up. You're actually supposed to get 100 girlfriends. He explains like there's this documentation that he has to fill out for everybody that tells if they're going to have a soulmate or not. And it says how many soulmates enter your number in the box. And they always hit 1. They always write a 1 in there because that's you only get 1 soulmate. But for some reason he was watching a TV show and he messed up and actually wrote down 100. However you do that when the box is like there and every time you do 1. But yeah, he's supposed to have 100 girlfriends. He kind of implies this idea later on that if he doesn't reciprocate a soulmate, like he'll know when it happens, and if he doesn't, like, you know, give it back, something can befall them. And they that kind of comes to light when he bumps into 2 girls, Hakari and Kanane, and realize that both of them are soulmates, and they both realize that he's their soulmate, and he's gonna choose just one of them. He doesn't want to break their hearts, but he's gonna have to choose one of them. And he's like, crap, now I have to be with both of them because, you know, something's going to befall one of them. So he decides he was thinking of actually, you know, turning them both down and then going to one and the other in secrecy and tell them, you know, look, I'm actually accepting you. Hey, look, I'm actually accepting you. Just don't tell the other person. But he wanted to be truthful. They confessed. They were truthful to him. So he wanted to be truthful to them. Rento's a good boy. This is like our sign that Rento is a good boy. But yes, in their own reluctantly ways, they accepted the idea of it being, all three of them. And this kind of turns into several other girls going on their own, like Shizuka, who is a bookworm and has had trouble speaking to people out loud. This like massive nerd girl that always thinks everything logically, so on and so forth. So, and he's just collecting his 100 girlfriends because every time one zappy zaps, he ends up. It's not like a case where he is forced upon him. What this show does well is the idea that every single one of the girls, yes, there is an initial, this is the one. But then it turns into a Rentaro finding something in them that he really loves, and them finding something, typically him doing something really good for them, and them finding love in him as well. So, your thoughts on this crazy show of this very inappropriate show? I'm sorry, a very inappropriate show. Why do we even watch this? It's such a disgusting show.
Yes, it's below all levels of classiness,
acceptableness.
Yeah, acceptableness. No, I absolutely love the show. It's really goofy. It has its little quirk that kind of gives it a value in the fact that, like Andrew had mentioned, the god had said, pretty much all of their pretty much karma is tied into this soulmate connection moment, and not following through with it kind of flips their karma over, and all this bad stuff can happen to them. And so I really do like the fact that they gave Rintaro a reason. He's not a bad ditherer. He's actually a pretty good ditherer. He's really into each one of these characters. He actually gives them time. Actually seems to be trying to explore each one of these characters in some way, shape, or form to find out kind of what's making them tick, kind of giving them kind of motivations for anything that they're doing involved with Rintaro. It's really shaping up to be probably one of the most solid harems that we've had in a long time. I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, that was what I kept telling people. I mean, we mentioned it with our podcast. Is like, it's one of those unfortunate cases where like this show comes out right at the same time second season of Girlfriend comes out. And they're both doing their own thing, but it's like, gosh, it just feels like this show is just leaps and bounds above really any other harem show that I've run into. Harem shows, yes, they can get stale. Like, unless you're really a massive fan of harem shows, or you at least find at least one girl in a harem show that you really like, you feel that fatigue. Like, it's very difficult to find a truly fresh take on a harem. Now, granted, Girlfriend was one. It was not a ditherer. This guy was like, Tashkani, yes, sir, I want you. Yes, I want you. He's like accepting this idea of having both these girlfriends. And this is kind of a similar case. Is he's finding, yes, I kind of want, like I said before, at the very beginning, it technically does get in the idea that he's like, I can't do that. Like, that's not normal. Like, you can't love more than one person at the same time. But I do see both of them as somebody that I care for. They did something really good for me. I can see their determination and everything, and I want them both to be happy. And it's like, can I break that? Can I break those norms? And they do a really good job of it. Like, it's one of those cases where it's like a rare harem show where I'm like, I kind of like this Rentaro guy. Like, I do kind of root for him. Like, to go with the whole bog standard harems, most of them have like a protagonist that I just don't care for. Like, it's always like this case of like, I like the girls, but I don't like the guy. I don't root for him. I don't think there's some cases where it's like the main character is like a young boy, like it's a Shota, and you're like, you kind of root for them because he's trying hard and he's a good kid, and he's cute and all that kind of stuff. You want to say Gambare, but most cases it's like either a shrieking protagonist that's always going, oh my gosh, chests, or they're just dits to it. Like, they just can't get it. They don't get what's in front of them. Rentaro, like I said, is a rare case of like, he does something to earn these things. Like the case with Shizuka. This is a girl that is struggling with speaking out, was terribly treated by her mother, was terribly treated by other students, and he doesn't go, you could do it, You could speak out loud. Do it. No, he goes, okay, I knew that you were having trouble. You always point at your book to words because she memorized this book that she really likes. So he ended up transcribing, not really technically transcribing. Is it technically still transcribing when you're copying text to another text? He copied over, hand copied, typed this entire text of this book into like a PDF thing that you could search for pages and then it would do text to speech. And that gives her the ability to, on a phone, tap and it speaks for her. So he did something really incredible for her to help her personally. So it's like one of those cases like, okay, he earned that. Like he does good things. Like it's not just about how cute the girls are and how great they are. It's about how good Rintaro is to them. His focus is to make sure every single one of them is happy in some way. How that works when he has 100 to deal with, that's the question mark. That's the massive question mark. But it's doing it in a way that I do really like. That aside, aside from the fact that I like the main character, I think they do hit on some pretty tough subjects, but not trying to get too deep into it. I mean, it gets into the concept of, accepting multiple girls. It gets into the concepts of, is it morally right or wrong? It gets into the concepts of, being unable to make the other person happy and feeling like you shouldn't be there. It's hitting heavy subject. Moving on with your life when you lose somebody. Those technically difficult subjects, but they're doing it in a respectful way, but doing it still in the midst of something that entertains you. Comedy. It's great. That's where obviously its selling point is. The cast is great. And I love how they kept kind of evolving the formula and refreshing it constantly. And yes, that comes in the form of introducing another girl every other episode. They introduce Hakari and Kanane right off the bat. They'll get an episode with them kind of having fun together. Then Shizuka comes in the picture. Next episode is Shizuka being welcomed into the group. Next character. So it was kind of introducing a character every other episode. And what each one of those characters adds to the formula is excellent. I think, of course, Hakari being like the super thirsty girl. You have Kanane being the massive tsundere. You have Shizuka being the too cute, must protect. She is the must protect. Each one of them having like their own joke that kind of introduces it. I thought Kusuri would break the show. I literally thought Kusuri was going to be absolute chaos injected because she's a science girl and she has these potions that just completely break logic. They technically didn't go, I mean, besides her ultimate like introduction episode where they're kind of welcoming her in, that was pure chaos. The zombie kissing was pure chaos. But they didn't let her take over the show, which I was actually surprised. But she does technically introduce chaos. Each one of them is great, and I like each one of their introduction. I love each one of their little kind of chemistry they add to the group, and they do a good job. Honestly, I do have a bias to Kanane because she's my favorite, but I think each one of them gets a proper amount of time. And again, like I said, I'm kind of curious how that works down the road. My only assumption is that this writer is going to take their time introducing characters as it goes along. Like I said, even though it looks like with the second core, they're going to introduce another 5 of them. It looks like they're taking their time introducing the characters so it doesn't get too chaotic, but it does make you kind of wonder if this show or the story and manga whatnot does a good enough job later on of balancing that. Like even with the later introduction into this series, like how often, but it's still showing how he's trying to go out of his way to see them. I feel for the guy. I feel for the guy how he's going to be able to juggle 100 girlfriends in the end, but we'll see how it turns out. Maybe at some point it just kind of skips to I did 100. Like it'll get to like maybe 40 or something like that, and then the writer's like, I can't balance this many, so let's just time jump 10 years, and he's introducing the 100th one, and they're in this massive football stadium. All the girls are just standing out in this field, and they're all right. Here's the 100th one. He's done it. He's up there like, we finally did it. This is it. I assure you. And then Kami pops up and says, sorry. Did I say 100? It was actually 200. And then he just dies. He just dies like right on the stage. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this show. Great comedy, great characters, great chemistry. Good animation too. I think Biburi Animation Studio, they went a little ham at times.
He would say 1,000.
You say 1,000. Yeah, it was another digit.
Was
Sorry,
as
one more digit. One more digit.
I just didn't want to overwhelm you right away.
Yeah. And by the way, they're in another world. So isekai time. And they're in a fantasy world. And he's got to find all of his girlfriends there and his elves. And they would do that. If the writer was like, I mean, they could do it before they get to 100.
He totally could. He would totally do it.
They might do that before they even get to 100. Like maybe gets to 50 and then goes, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, yeah, they're in another world. Isekai time. And maybe it like pauses the current timeline over here. That way he doesn't have to worry about. Maybe he has to go back and forth. Who knows? He gives him the ability to transport whenever he wants to. That would be fun. They should totally do that. I think that would be great. But yeah, what else can I say? Like I said, looks great. Visually looks great. The ecchi is chef kiss. The ecchi is really good, especially around Kanane. Has some great Hakari moments. They were pretty safe with Shizuka, and I think because she's more the cutesy, must protect side, but. Yeah, it turned out great. I was really, really pleased with the series, and I cannot wait for the second season. They haven't said a date yet, which they could still do spring. They have another like 2 months to announce if it's going to be spring, but I would imagine probably. I wonder if it's going to be probably fall. I wonder if they'll do fall again. I think summer. I think it'll be summer.
Think so?
Yeah, I think it'll be summer. We'll see though. I want it. I want it. It was fun. But yeah, that's 100 Girlfriends who really, 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 really love you. What was my favorite episode? I think it was. I only
have really 2 scenes that are probably. No, I would say 3. The Shizuka getting lost in the. That was awesome.
The fate I can't fight, or something like that.
Fate I can't fight.
She's like stuck in the middle of the island.
The kissing episode, taking Shizuka and hanging her up on the.
That was great. Now, see, I like the zombie episode, but it's like that was one where like it felt like some of the scenes were drug out a bit too much. But that was technically where we got the introduction of another ship in the series. That's a really great ship that we get another shot of later on in the series with them just all over each other in bed. That was great.
And then my last one is probably Hahari realizing that she was in love with Rentaro. That scene, I replayed that so many freaking times. It was too freaking funny.
She says Rentaro-chan so great. Her Seiyu nails that.
Yeah, she does.
Rentaro-chan. Rentaro-chan. It kind of reminds me of Vlum from Urusei Yatsura. Rentaro-chan. Anyways, yeah, it's super good. Really enjoy it. Anyways, did you finish Eminence in Shadow?
Yep.
Eminence in Shadow second season. Let's get this one over with. But yeah, Eminence in Shadow, which basically opens up with Sid. Well, I don't think his name was Sid when he was in his previous life. This guy that was like all about being the Eminence in Shadow. He wanted to be the hero of the night that nobody knows about. Just goes around and takes out baddies. But he found out really quickly that humans don't have superpowers. And so there was a limit to his ability to get stronger. And then as he pretty much freaked out and got hit by a truck, he gets transported to a world where he can actually have magical powers, this world of fantasy. And he then at that point gets his powers and then starts to train and becomes Shadow, the Eminence in Shadow that works in the night. He saves the lives of a bunch of girls that are of a certain bloodline, and they all make the Shadow Garden, which is a group that is like fighting the cult of Diablos in the night. He thinks they're just playing into his little delusions, but they formed a whole organization that has at least over almost 600 or 700 members, because one member joins and she's 666. So they have a lot of members, a lot of girls, but they just like work in the night trying to take out the cult Diablos while he's over here just trying to do cool stuff. Just basically his bucket list of things that he's always wanted to do that's super cool. In the second season, we get into we had the Crimson Moon, which was the whole segment with the Queen, Blood Queen. Is it Blood Queen? The Vampire Queen, basically.
Yeah.
I thought her name was a Blood Queen or something like that. But yeah, the whole segment that we had, the second segment was some stupid thing with banks, because the Shadow Garden has like a whole banking system where they're replacing gold with paper money, and this other group wants to take him down. And then the final arc is that happened. Yeah, it was mostly around Orion, kind of closing up that whole segment with Rose and her family, her father now being gone, and the kingdom in peril, and her trying to do something to save her mother, and Shadow Garden coming in there and taking him out. And then a big massive twist at the end. But your thoughts? I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts of this season.
I generally enjoyed
it. My thoughts exactly.
I generally enjoyed it. The problem is that it's falling into a comfort zone that it's not really adding anything new. There's new girls, yeah, but adding more girls, all that does is makes me want to follow the Shadow Garden more, and that's probably the biggest issue. I'm just not drawn to the whole Sid thing. I never have been. I do like, and it's the same thing that I've always said is I enjoy the idea that his delusions are actually becoming reality. Whether he, and I love the fact that he's kind of oblivious to it. But at the same time, he in himself is not an interesting character. He does not, I don't find him enjoyable per se. He's not, overtly annoying me, but I just don't find him enjoyable. But I do find the world around him fascinating, and that's the frustrating thing. I don't know.
I always found that I was trying to figure out really his connection with Shadow Garden this season, because I've always had this feeling like based on his own comments, yes, like early on he said, okay, they're gonna go on their own, they're tired of me, they're gonna do their own thing while I go to school and all that kind of stuff. But no, they were still doing Shadow Garden. They were still working to spread their influence elsewhere. And he was saying like, oh yeah, they're gonna go on their own, they're tired, they're sick of me. He was kind of playing into what he felt like in his previous. He was a Chuny in his previous life. The whole joke of this series is what happens when a Chuny from our world ends up in a world where they are not a Chuny. Well, they're still a Chuny, but they actually have powers. They're not faking their powers and thinking they have that power. He now has it, and so he has that assumption that anybody is gonna see that he's dumb or they're gonna play into it. And so he thought they were playing into it. They're just amusing me. And they even had this later segment where Alpha comes by while he's in school, and he's like, oh, she showed up and she's just amusing me. They don't actually believe in this stuff. Whatever. But then it kind of shows scenes where he's actually like meeting with Shadow Garden. And it's like, okay, so is this another situation where he's sitting there and he thinks they're playing into it? At some point they disconnected that. Like they stopped addressing, does he really believe these girls are doing what they're doing? The reason why I bring that up is because
he even talks to Delta as if I have the rules.
Command over you. Yeah,
you know the rules. If I say it oversteps Epsilon.
Overrides them. Yeah, like he knows about the main 7. Was it 7? I think it was the main 7. Yeah, Shadow 7. But no, it's like this kind of thing where I thought that he was thinking they were playing into it, but no, he's starting to actually act as if this is a thing, and he does acknowledge that Shadow Garden exists. The why I bring that up is because this season was very difficult for me. I have a habit of taking this show seriously. Yes, I acknowledge that it is a comedy. First and foremost, it is a comedy about a guy that just wants to do stupid things and gets a kick out of doing really super cool stuff that a Chuny would want to do, but he's actually doing it because there's actual magic in this world. But I get frustrated because I always think of like, gosh, he's like, if you think about it, he's a total jerk to these girls. Like the whole banking system part, he wanted to literally collapse what the girls built. They built this Mitsugami, whatever, massive corporation, basically using all of his knowledge. They call it the legend, what was the name of they call it? The shadow scriptures or whatever, like whatever knowledge he brought from his previous world, he told them and they built it. So they made strip malls and they made fashion and all this kind of stuff from his world, our world, into that world, and it sells like crazy. They have a massive conglomeration, and again, they open up banks and everything. He wanted to break them. He wanted to make their company fall, because they were doing the banking stuff and all that kind of stuff, and he felt like they were going to eventually run into a problem. They were getting too big for their own good. They were squashing the little man. And it's like, but they built it for you, and if you just go tell them not to do that, they'll change it. Like, they literally do anything you tell them. But no, you're going to work against them and destroy their entire the thing they're building for you. They have spent their entire lives building this for you, and you're going to destroy it. It's like, I hate you. And then the whole thing with the shoveling. I hated the shoveling thing, but that was like a cherry on top. And he even acknowledged it. Like, I have to leave for a while because I did them wrong. It was like he's out there with Delta because he thinks something's buried there, and he goes, "All right, dig," and then he just walks away. And she's over there like, "I think I found something," and she's just digging. And then come to find out, he did it once before when they were making the hot springs. He told them all dig, and then he left. It's like, I hate you so much, Sid. But no, I've always been the mindset of, I don't like Sid's parts. Like, when it's just Sid, it's kind of boring. It is boring. I love Shadow Garden segments. That's why I've always watched this show. I love Shadow Garden. I love the concept of Shadow Garden. And I love when Sid is interacting with Shadow Garden. So, love it, like it, don't like it. And so, yes, there is a struggle for me because, yes, quite a bit of the show is just Sid. And I fully acknowledge that I have a bias to enjoying this part of it. But it doesn't take, because I don't like this segment of it, doesn't take away from the fact that that is where I find my enjoyment. So as long as it does well in balancing that, I really enjoy the show. Whenever I have an episode where it's mostly just Sid, yes, I admit, I don't enjoy the show very much. So it's a constant balance for me in liking certain parts and not parts. I think the Crimson Moon segment was super good. Besides the fact that he overdid the joke. That's pretty much this series. I will give one massive criticism to this writer, and it's the idea that they kill jokes. They find it. It's almost like they wrote something and they started busting up laughing as they're writing it, and the editor's right there going, "What happened?" And you're like, he's like, I just thought of a really good joke. Okay, I'm going to write it in every single page for the next 2 chapters. This is my new joke. I'm going to put this on every single page for the next 2 chapters because I found this joke to be super funny. Like the whole thing with Mary, her saying something like it's time. The moon is red. It is the time. Sid picks up on that and then goes around and says that to everybody. And by the 3rd time, I'm like, oh, please don't. Writer, stop. But yeah, I enjoyed the first arc. Besides that, thought it was really fantastic. Things around Claire and was Aurora. That stuff was super cool. I hope we get more Aurora. That was really fantastic. Again, the second arc with the Banks, didn't like it that much. There was some good nuggets in there. I think how it ended was refreshing. It played out how I knew it was going to play out, but I thought it was kind of refreshing in the idea that technically the Shadow Garden inadvertently pulled the rug out from under Sid. I thought it was crafty how the writer managed to make Shadow Garden technically outdo Shadow without even thinking about it. Like, they didn't intend for that. They just assumed that that's what Shadow wanted. I thought that was kind of clever. The final arc, I wasn't too much of a fan of the build-up, but because I was really frustrated with Rose. I thought that Rose has always been kind of my most, the character that's not my favorite of the girls, because like I like Delta, Psylin, but Rose is the character that I think is the most interesting in build. Like, the writer put a lot of work so far into Rose's character. She's seen so much change, but I really thought it was super disappointing how they played her out in this last arc. It was like, is she that dumb? Like, is this character? I thought this character was smart, but I guess she's extremely dumb. But I didn't like how that played out. But still, I will admit the ending piqued my interest. It's kind of predictable, but it opened up so many doors. Like, they literally essentially explained how Sid got there. And it opens up a lot of doors for possibilities going forward. And that's all I'll say. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. Or if it's just going to be not that interesting. Because I have a habit of overly thinking and overly analyzing the series. And I don't ever look at people's replies and responses to my theories, because I don't really want to see if I want to hope the writer has something clever up their sleeve, and I might just be clawing at nothing, and there never is going to be anything interesting. But I have my hopes. I have some hopes for the series.
I was half expecting that element to be dropped in a lot earlier than it actually did. Because of the, I mean, we both pretty much agreed that that character per se was too unique for it to be.
It's the Seiyu. Come on, it's just the Seiyu. We're like, oh my gosh, this Seiyu. This Seiyu is definitely going to be important later on. And it's like, I'm waiting. she's definitely going to come back soon. Don't worry. that particular Seiyu that we adore is definitely going to come back eventually, right? Right? Nope, not yet. Anyways, any other thoughts? Pretty solid. I'll say it's still a pretty solid season. Not gonna. Eminence and Shadow is never my favorite show ever, but I do appreciate a lot of things about it, so I'm still watching it. And
the only thing that would have made me mad was if the Ninetales Fox girl didn't join Shadow Garden, and yeah, I
wonder if she ever joined.
I know, right?
I wonder if she ever joined. Good question. Sasuga said, always that's how it ends. You ready? You excited for a movie though? I will say that one issue that I've always had with Eminence and Shadow is I like its style. I think the studio Nexus has done a great job with the style. I think it is a little bit overly dark style to the point where it's sometimes very difficult to kind of make out what's going on the screen. But it's very difficult to make thumbnails because it's very difficult to make thumbnails for Eminence and Shadow because you have to massively upgrade the brightness so people can see what the hell's going on in your thumbnail. But I've always been let down by the animation. They do a lot of action stills. Like they put a lot of like lines and they pan and zoom in and zoom out to kind of give you some impact from a still. But it's usually typically in a lot of cases just stills. And I've always been kind of disappointed in that. They went pretty crazy with the last episode for a little bit, but I don't know if my only hope for a movie is that maybe they might actually put some budget into the animation, because otherwise, I mean, it's not like if it's a movie, it has to have a movie budget. It could just be a movie of the series, and it's popular enough that even if it doesn't have good animation, it's still going to sell well. But that's my hope. But I guess we'll see. I'll be curious how. I mean, technically, Haidai does a lot of theatrical releases as well, so they'll probably, hopefully, get it very quickly. But we'll see. Eminence and Shadow, second season. That's that. Arknights, Paris and Frost. That ended. Shoot, that ended like 2 months ago. It feels like 2 months ago the show ended, probably a month ago. So it's gonna be very difficult for me to remember anything about this show. But yeah, it released on Crunchyroll and for 8 episodes, owned by Yostar Pictures again, based on, of course, a mobile game, Arknights. And of course, when Prelude to Dawn came out last year, which was also 8 episodes, very short, but thankfully it kind of feels like I like this whole thing. I hope that more groups do this, where it's like, this series is going to need 8 episodes. That's all you need. So we're going to release 8 episodes. We're not going to push it 12 episodes. The story arc ends in 8 episodes, which is technically going based on, like, again, because it's based off a mobile game, it's going by story arcs within the mobile game. And that probably seems like it's stretching out for at least 8 episode length. For those that don't know, it essentially opens up in this world where you have this outbreak of this disease caused by this Arignium, and those that are infected with this oropathy from the Arignium, which is this ore, they are pretty much being outed by society, seen as second-class people, being hunted down, being kicked out of cities and whatnot. It seems like in this world, and I'm trying to draw my conclusions here based on what we've seen, because it does seem like quite a bit of the story is being laid out either in different side information or at least not fully being overly explained by the series. Is that, yes, you have all these different cities and they're all on these moving platforms. Like you have this city right here, Lungmen, and it's on this massive moving island. And they are on moving islands because every now and then they have these catastrophes that happen, which is like this raining of material down on locations, so they have to move their islands before that catastrophe happens. We open up with a doctor being woken up from a sleep or a coma or something like that, and he's quickly rushed off to this one organization called Rose Island. Rose Island is pretty much we want peace for everybody. We want good for everybody. Their whole purpose, what they're seeking out is to try to find a cure for the oropathy. They want to help the infected, and they want to work with those that are not infected to not treat the infected wrong. Then you have those that are not infected, which are your governments and stuff like that are trying to push out the infected. And then you have Reunion. So there's 3 factions, basically. 3, in a general sense, there are 3 factions. And the Reunion are those that are infected that want to basically fight back. They've been driven out of towns. They've been treated terribly. So they're fighting back. So you have uninfected, the Reunion, and Rhodes Island in the middle. But yeah, the Doctor gets pulled into Rhodes Island. We meet Amiya. Amiya is the lead of Rhodes Island, and they're trying to essentially... They were hoping that Doctor would have his memories, but he doesn't. He's basically trying to remember what happened previously, but he's the one that was essentially working to find a cure, and so they're trying to hope that eventually he gets his memories back. He's also like a tactician, so he often leads them into battles and whatnot. But yeah, in the first season, it was basically them waking up the Doctor and leaving there, and then eventually going to Lungmen, where Lungmen is where pretty much most of the entire Perish and Frost is kind of set in, and that is, Lungmen is this big, massive city that has been treating the infected as second class and driving them out, not allowing any immigrants to come in, and at some point, Reunion comes in and attacks them. And it seems like there is a purpose for why they're attacking, but we just are getting to the point where it seemed like they're going to get into that, and that's where this season ended, unfortunately. But most of this entire season has been mostly focused around like several key members of the Reunion and them basically trying to fight them back, and eventually seeing kind of the nastier side of Lungmen. Like Lungmen it's kind of one of those things. Like, this will get in my review technically, and the idea that I think the thing that fascinated me most about this particular season. And I had that feeling in Prelude to Dawn, the first season. I had this feeling that the writers behind this series are really good at showing you that every side is suffering. That there's not a bad guy. Every side has their purpose for what they're doing, and there is a driving force, and it's often because the other side drove them to it. And yes, when you have a case where essentially infected prejudice, basically, where you are treating anybody that is infected by this as non-existent, less than human, of course, eventually you put enough strain on them, they're going to rise up. Like, you're going to push them and push them and push them, and yes, drive them to death. Eventually, they're going to turn around and bite you back. And that's kind of what they've really highlighted heavily in Perish and Frost, is that idea of so many individuals that are mainly on the Reunion side that are hurting. They are treated terribly, and they're not justifying it, but it technically is showing you that there is a reason why these people are doing what they're doing, and they're trying to gain some sort of footing, whereas those that are not infected are... And this is what the great side is, because on the opposite end, like with Lungmen, a lot of the perspective on this season was around Shin. Shin is the commander of, like, the main defense force of Lungmen. And she's seeing that. She's seeing, like, Lungmen's kind of bad. Like, what we're doing is kind of bad, and she doesn't like it. But there is that struggle of, but if I step away, I won't have the power to change that. So she is in that conflicting point where the more I stay here, the more I see how my actions are leading to bloodshed, and I'm basically being a tool to something that is killing people. But at the same time, I can't necessarily step away from it, because then I won't have any power at all to do any good. And that's always been kind of the interesting dynamic there, is how Rhodes Island, especially Amiya, is sort of trying to change how people view the other side. And it's never Amiya walks in, cute bunny girl goes, please stop, and then everybody goes, yeah, you're right, let's not do that. It's often Amiya's just trying to prevent as much damage as possible until people kind of see what they're doing is wrong. And even Amiya herself technically running into her own issues where her actions lead to catastrophes as well. I mean, that was a pinnacle part of the first season. But yeah, I think that's all for me to say that I do really love the Arknights series. I will admit that there, especially with this season, there was several points where I thought something's not being explained enough, especially at the very end of the season. But I hope it's something that'll probably be explained in the coming season. Hopefully they'll announce another season here soon. But I don't necessarily want it to sit there and overly explain everything. It's one of those things where I don't want an information dump. I don't want a bunch of exposition dump. But at the same time, there is times where I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to understand more about the situation or if what they're giving me is enough. Mixed in there is fantastic directing. I won't say that Yostar Pictures is dumping massive budget into this to make the animation look incredible. I mean, it does have some really good animation points. But even if they don't have great animation, the directing is spot on. Like, the director working on this series is incredible because the perspective shots... the mood setting, the establishment shots, all that stuff is fantastic. It's never simple, like, camera on character and their lips are flapping. There's always, like, something on the screen that tells you a story while you're getting a story. So if a character's talking over here about their next move, somebody is struggling with something. Like, somebody is dealing with a situation, and you're seeing that visually while somebody else is over here talking. So, really a lot of credit to the directing work that's done to it. And plus... cute animal girls in big jackets with guns. Is three of the greatest characteristics of character designs.
I really got to catch up on that show.
Cute animal girls, guns, and big jackets. I like it. And yes, Swatter was our ringlets that they added this season that I thought Chris would really like. Swatter was the moment that Swatter showed up in the show, I'm like, all right, my new favorite character. I was telling everybody, let me know whenever she pops up on a banner so they can log back into Arknights and roll for her. Even though I probably don't have any gems to spin on her because I haven't been playing it. I'm loving it. I really do like it. It's easily last year it was one of my favorite shows of the last year, and this show it's going to turn out to probably be one as well. But I can't wait for more. It's fantastic. It's really good. So, yep, that's Arknights, Persh, and Frost. What else do we have? Did you watch Kami Arabi?
I stopped.
You stopped?
I stopped with the stupid things because Andrew kept saying, all you want to do is talk about those two shows.
Oh, that one, yeah. Did you finish Spy Family?
Yes.
We can do Spy Family. Spy Family Season 2. Basically, for those that don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't know, Spy Family essentially opens up with this spy who gets a new job to acquire a family because they have to sneak into this really big academy in order to have their child gain all these like stars that will allow them to get to like this secret family meeting in order to meet this guy that is possibly tied in with a group that is going to cause this conflict between these two currently at peace sides of this continent that could erupt in war again. And so he has to find a girl, which he finds Yor, and then adopt a child named Anya, and come to find out Anya actually can read minds, and the girl that he got to marry, Yor, is actually secretly an assassin. So the whole shtick is he's hiding the fact that he's a spy. Anya can't tell anybody that she can read minds, and Yor can't tell anybody that she's an assassin. So to keep their secrets kind of thing. But Anya knows everything. And yeah, second season was mostly around Yor having a job to escort this surviving wife of this Yakuza family to get on a ship to get to this other location to get away from basically getting killed by this double crossing that was happening. And so they get on a ship, and oh yeah, by the way, Anya wins that same cruise. I thought it was gonna be like a plant, like they were planting that Anya wins that, but no, it was just that for some reason she ends up going by this raffle, and here's the secret behind the raffle. And so yeah, Lloyd and Anya end up getting on the cruise as well, while Yor's doing her protecting of this wife and her child. And yeah, that whole thing, and Yor kind of figuring out if she wants to remain an assassin or not, and then have fun on the ship with Anya and Lloyd. So what'd you think of season 2? Oh yeah, and then Becky got all thirsty again. We had another Becky's thirsty for Lloyd episode. some other stuff too, like
it was actually
Damien's episode, and
she actually
Bond.
got kind of crazy on that episode, didn't she?
Yeah.
I'm not big on this show. I do like it. I kind of wish that it had the same flair that it did on that, what, second or third episode. And I don't want to say that it's all because of one character that I enjoyed the show, but it's frustrating. I mean, I do like I like Anya. I love the constant everybody's doing things. Anya's trying to fit into this grouping of this family, but in all actuality, I not much of the comedy really kicks for me.
I will admit that, yeah, this season more than any other than the previous seasons, the comedy wasn't really there. Now, granted, again, a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was so much focus. There was at least 5 episodes focusing on Yor and her a serious job. But I mean, it was still Anya there, and her with Lloyd, and her forcing Lloyd to do things because that's what normal families do, and he's afraid of not looking like a normal family and losing Anya or something like that. But yeah, it was other than the fact that part of Yor had to be kind of serious. It wasn't a very comically oomph season. I mean, like I said, besides Becky being super thirsty for an episode, but everything else was kind of not really there.
Yeah. I mean, there was some real great action shots. Yor's her final battle was freaking amazing. But it's really frustrating. Okay, this is I hate to say it this way, but okay, Henry in the first season, I rolled so hard. That was great. It was hilarious, and I have this kind of frustrating thing that I'm constantly watching and waiting for that. And I know that I shouldn't be expecting that, but at the same time, like Andrew said, Becky's freaking hilarious. There was one particular episode that Andrew didn't really like that I actually did like. And that was the tennis match. Why? I don't know. It worked for me. But in all actuality, some of the kind of family things that Lloyd is going through is interesting. As far as character study, some of the stuff that Yor is going through with her character study, as far as why is she still an assassin when she is technically valuing her family more, that's interesting. But outside of that, it's just I guess I just keep watching and hope that sooner or later it just hits something for me.
I mean, that kind of plays into what my feelings were with the end of the second core of the first season. It was like, I really did feel like I'm kind of happy that for once you're kind of on the same board as I am. And maybe that's because it just, this particular season specifically. But I fell off of, but still enjoy Spy Family. Like, I thought the first core of the first season was brilliant. Like, I was like, this is going to be the best series ever. I was so hot on it. I thought the chemistry was fantastic. Everything was working out fantastic. And then by the time the second core hit and going into the second core, it's like at some point I realized this is not really doing anything. Like, it's not going anywhere. The characters aren't really doing much. There's no, I don't expect like massive character change and massive character growth. I mean, I sort of had a feeling that something could happen with Yor because they started hitting on the idea of her like, do I want to continue doing this? Like, Lloyd and Anya in front of me are going to go off and have fun together, and I kind of want to join them. Like, I want to be there as a mother because I think it'll be fun. But no, I have to do this bodyguard stuff. And she was like, well, maybe this could be my last job. Like, she was considering this could be my last job. Yes, and while I watched the episode, I'm going, that's never going to happen. Like Lloyd, Yor has to be the assassin. That's the joke. That's just like Lloyd suddenly going, I want to give up being a spy. He would no longer be hiding the fact that he's a spy. That part of the story ends. And that chemistry that the And I mentioned this with the first season. I mentioned the idea that I never thought that Yor would ever kill again because they pigeonholed themselves into this wholesome family comedy. Well, granted, they proved that to me wrong. They proved me wrong with this season because, yes, the moment this dagger goes flying through this door right to the head of this guy, I'm like, okay, finally, we're showing Yor killing again. She's actually being an assassin. Kind of proved me wrong there, but it still kind of holds true in the idea that I don't know that I would ever, if they would ever do anything to really kind of shake up the molds of this story, because this writer has sort of wrote themselves into, this is the shtick, and these characters do all these things. And I found out really quickly with the second half of the first quarter of, or the second half of the first season, that that's their shtick. That's always gonna be their shtick. Whenever Frost shows up, she's talking about how much she thinks Lloyd is great. She finally gets an episode this season. What did she do? She was trying to prove to Lloyd that she's great. And that was it. That's her entire episode, is her doing all the work that Lloyd can't do at the time, so that she can prove something to him. And then, yes, he gets her a souvenir, and she runs off saying how much she loves him. We get a segment with Yuri. What is he doing, by the way? He's obsessing over his sister. That's a big shock. That's a big change. Anything else? No, he's just obsessing over his sister.
Well, it all culminates in this one final scene where Anya says something about lying is bad, and everybody goes on to say how bad how bad lying is, and then Anya's the entire time listening to their thoughts and how they are each considering the fact that they're such big liars.
But no, my whole point is that it's like, I agree. I do enjoy the series. It's still a fun, wholesome series. And yes, it gets crazy with the action. The whole thing with Yor, which I've been wanting for a long time. This season finally gave me something where Yor is doing something, and I loved it. But yes, when I step back, it's like, I don't necessarily feel like this show is doing anything to really kind of surprise me anymore. The comedy's not surprising me. The story's not surprising me. The characters aren't surprising me. It's gotten too comfortable. Yeah. Like, it feels like the series has gotten way too comfortable. And Yor killing people, yes, feels like it's getting out of that rut, but it's still technically within the bounds that they've set it up, and they're not doing enough with it. So, I don't know. I hope that eventually it does something different, but it's still a good show, just not great. Like, it is one of those things where I'm looking at doing my top 10 of fall, and it's like, it's sad that I don't have any desire to put Spy Family in it. Like, this is the biggest show, technically, of the season. And I have no really desire to really kind of put it in there because I don't really feel like it's doing enough. Like, I can't give this a slot in my top 10 list versus, say, something like Yuzuki Family that made me cry my eyes out. Like, this did so many things that shocked me. Spy Family just did the status quo. So, it looks great. And again, great studio. But, yeah, I want more. Because, like I said, I was massively in love with the first season when it first started. I thought it was so great. But we'll see. We'll see if it goes anywhere from there. But for now, at least we got your shot in the butt. That was funny. Entire episode of her dealing with the fact that she got shot in the butt. And she has to hide it. I feel so bad for her. Let's go ahead and do Migi before I forget. Migi and Dali. This one was 13 episodes done by Geek Toys and Comptown, based on a manga that was by Nami Sano. Sano, of course, unfortunately passed away in August, I believe it was the creator of Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto. But Migi and Dali pretty much opens up with Migi and Dali, and they're in this orphanage. At some point, this elderly couple come in. Not elderly, they're pretty up there in age, like 50 or whatever. Yoko and Osamu, they come into the orphanage to adopt one child. Now, the thing that piques Migi and Dali's interest as twins, not as twins, but they're twins. What piques their interest is that the two of them live in this one specific village, which is Oregon Village. And they immediately pick up on this because Oregon Village is where their mother was. They were with their mother at some point in Oregon Village, and that was where their mother was killed. And so they badly want to get back there so they can investigate what happened to their mother. But this couple can only adopt one child. So they decide to, put into effect this massive plan to make this grandiose appearance to them just before they leave. That way they leave impact on the two of them before they leave, and they make sure that it seems like it's only one of them. And sure enough, they get adopted, or they adopt one of them, which is they named themselves Hitori. And the two of them, Migi and Dali, will trade places while always keeping the appearance to this couple that they're one child. So one of them will always be in the shadow, and the other one is in front of the parents. And every now and then they'll switch places without them knowing and assist each other. Well, all the time they're investigating to try to find out what happened to their mother, why she was killed, who killed their mother, all that kind of stuff. The only thing they know is at some point they found her, she was bleeding out, she was dead, and they buried her. So yeah, that's kind of the setup, and the crazy shenanigans unfold. Yeah, to get through the whole spiel, which we pretty much went through with the first impressions, is definitely feels like, haven't you heard Sakamoto? This creator excels at just doing the most odd, off-the-wall things in the coolest way possible. The prime example I always give people is when one of them is eating at the dinner table with the parents, and they get full. And the other brother is underneath the table, hiding, and they're hungry. So what they do is, instead of like typically what you do is go, oh, I dropped my fork, and you lean over, and then the other person comes up and, replaces you from underneath the table. No, they decide to do this thing where they lock their feet, and they grab their hands, and they do this weird like loop-de-loop to replace each other while on the chair. It was just off the wall weird. Or later on, they're trying to figure out they're being taught how to make a cherry pie, and they have to do like the crisscross pie decoration on the top of the pie, and only one of them knows how to do it. So they come up behind the other one and replace their arms to wrap it right there while they're working. It's just like the most weirdest stuff. Because the old man can't lift them up on their shoulders to get to this bird house, they decide to use a rope and counterweight with the father blindfolded so that he can successfully lift them up and thus make him happy, because they're trying to make the parents happy so they don't get rid of them. It's just weird. And it only gets weirder as it goes along. I mean, they end up meeting this one guy that's obsessed with becoming a bird, and that was interesting. Just absolute shenanigans. And eventually another family where the mother is literally brainwashing people by locking them up inside of this closet and then retraining their brain from the point of infancy all the way to an adult so that they could be proper children. It's weird. Super weird show. We were doing our spoiler, I think it was our spoiler discussion of the show, and it hit me out of nowhere, and I'm stuck on this now. The best way to explain Migi and Dali is, yes, if you've ever watched Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto, you can get a sense from that. Just take Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto, but get a lot more creepier and dark. That's Migi and Dali. The other best way that I can explain it is, if you've ever read Junji Ito, think Junji Ito if he wrote a comedy. That's literally Migi and Dali. And it was so great, because when I said that, and I think in our spoiler discussion, somebody's like, you haven't watched the recent episodes, have you? Because it got darker. And I'm like, you know what? Now that I've watched those 2 episodes, I still stand by it. Because Junji Ito is dark, and this is still Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto comedy. And they're still both present. Like, even when the show gets its darkest, it's still weird, and it's still oddly comical in a way. This writer, unfortunately, again, rest in peace, was brilliant at oddities, brilliant at weirdness, brilliant at creepiness, and brilliant at still being logical. That's the weird thing, because these characters act so weird, and I think it works around the other characters that they are weird because everybody's kind of got a couple screws loose. Like, there's not a single character in this series that doesn't have something odd about them, that they technically can accept the other oddities around them. And that's all kind of presented in, surprisingly enough, with Geek Toys. I think Geek Toys we haven't really had too much luck with, but maybe with Comp Town and Present or whatever. It's not like crazy action show or anything like that, but they did a really good job of nailing that oddity. And the music, phenomenal. Yes, there's a lot of reused songs over and over again. They have vocals in it as well, because it almost kind of like a creepy whimsicalness to it that the music has with the vocals. And yes, it's played a lot, but it's perfect. Like it just fits the setting. It fits the scene. Whenever they do something really weird, it'll play in that music and just kind of add to that unsettlingness of the characters and everything like that's going on. But it's super good. It plays into them basically discovering the origins of what happened to their mother as they try to find out where they were living at based on this wallpaper, eventually leading into trying to figure out who actually did it, what actually happened with their mother. And just another kind of bonus for people, because we always like to point this out whenever it's the case, full adaptation. So this did the whole story, the entire manga, and it was a very, very, very satisfying ending. I was very pleased with the ending. I actually I got pretty emotional with the last episode. I thought it was a very sweet ending to it that I wasn't really expecting. Now, the other bonus is that at the very end, they did like an homage, or they did a in memory of Sano, and I was like, oh gosh, I got all teared up. I'm like, that was such a beautiful ending to it. I love that they did a tribute to Sano at the very end, because yes, it was very unfortunate, because Sano passed away right before this adaptation came out, and I thought it was hopefully she got to see some of it, because like this was a very, in my opinion, I haven't actually read the manga, but it felt like a very good adaptation, and I bet she would have been very pleased with it. So yeah, it's just an amazing creator, and it wasn't until I finished this season that I was like, crap, we loved Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto, and I loved Migi and Dali. I thought it was just a very unique thing. It's weird because Migi and Dali is one of those series that it's like one that I go, this is incredible. This is one of the anime of the season. This is a potential contender for, maybe not number one, but a contender for that top list of 2023. But it's one of those series that I blame nobody for not watching it. Like, it is one of those ones where you have to feel it. Like, you have to watch, you have to be in the mood, or it just has to work for you. And I fully understand if it doesn't work for people. It's just super weird, and I love it. I loved it for that exact reason. It's just cringy, it's weird, it's unsettling, and it's funny at the same time. So, yeah, it's fantastic. I highly recommend at least giving. I think you'll know in the first episode. It's one of those shows where you'll know in the first episode if it works for you. If you don't get that, like, this is so weird, but I like it kind of mood to it. If you don't get it, just don't worry about it. But if it works, it's brilliant. It's absolutely a masterpiece in what it's doing. So that is not Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
they love their stupid turtlenecks, and she wanted to get him something else, and like, no, I really like this shirt. You're not Steve Jobs. It was so great. Yoko and her cussing was great. Yeah, that's Migi and Dali. Rest in peace. That was it sucks. Like, it's one of those moments when that memorial came up on the screen, I was like, it sucks how we lost such an absolutely talented, hardworking creator, because apparently what she was actually working on her next project already, and she passed away working on that project. Like, she knew she was ill, and she just kept moving. Like, I'm guessing, I don't know the full details, but I'm guessing one of those types that, like, I'm just going to keep working until I can't work anymore. So it sucks. It really does suck. Heartbreaking. What else? What about 16-Bit Sensation? Did I finish it?
Well, last I heard, you were frustrated with it.
No, I think I have one more episode left. Yes, I'm extremely frustrated with it. Did you watch the S rank daughter?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Did you finish it? Like, is it done? Okay, let's do that one. My daughter left the nest.
I don't know if it's finished, but I watched everything that's out right now.
Okay, let's find out really quickly. I don't want to like review it and then somebody's like, actually, there's another episode. Rank, daughter. It was Crunchyroll, right?
Yep.
My daughter left the nest and returned an S rank adventurer. You did. It's 13, unless there's 14 episodes. It should be 14 episodes. It's 13, yeah. My daughter left the nest and returned an S-rank adventurer. This one was streaming on Crunchyroll for 13 episodes by Typhoon Graphics, based on a light novel. And yeah, it opens up with Anji, this girl who was picked up in a forest by what adventurers called the Red Ogre in his prime days of being an adventurer. He got injured at some point while he was an adventurer and basically retired in some small village where, again, he found this baby abandoned in a forest and decided to raise her because it looked like she was obviously abandoned. And when she grew up, she wanted to be an adventurer just like him, so she went out and became an adventurer, and at that point constantly wants to come back to Dad because she loves Dad so much. And she can't because they have a shortage of adventurers, apparently. And eventually, comes home, and all the while, her father gets messages from her and hears of her exploits from other people. And that's about as far as I got. So
there's pretty much a lack of S rank adventurers, being that she's the only S rank adventurer apparently, and so every freaking S rank job has to be done by her until she finally convinces them to bring in the old
guards. A bunch of old folks bring them back in there because they can't get anybody else. Did it actually explain it in this idea of like, maybe this certain generation is able to be super powerful and all the new generation can't?
No.
They suck. They're just shorthanded, Andrew. There's nothing complicated about it. They're just shorthanded. So what was your ultimate thoughts on it? Did Angie marry her dad? I'm just joking. I'm just joking. People, don't get in the comments. They get so mad when I made that joke.
She was wife hunting though.
She was wife hunting for dad?
She was wife hunting.
Oh, nice. She's trying to hook up her dad.
And then he got mad at her.
Oh.
And she got all pouty for a second.
Oh. I could see, like, what was it, her name? The Maria? Yeah. Was it her? Did he try to set up with Maria?
Gosh, no. No, it was the orphanage lady,
Well, I mean, the entire Bordeaux family wanted to get with him, so why not?
I know, right?
Just hook him up with the Bordeaux family.
No, he didn't want to leave town.
The elder sister.
And then he left town. I don't know what the heck is.
I figured eventually he was going to join Angie and just go out adventuring together. That way she's always happy.
I generally like this show. It's kind of got this sweet nature to it, of this kind of Angeline constantly kind of building up her dad and just kind of doing all these things around all these adventures, and all the time she's constantly going on about her dad and how all this information kind of just slowly moves its way down the grapevine and eventually gets back to him, and he finds out about, for instance, how we ended up meeting the Bordeaux was that they were all coming to find him because they wanted to meet this Red Ogre Belgrieve. And all these stories were
well, she got the one of the sisters. She was supposed to go home to see Dad. She finally got time off, and she was going to go see her dad. But on the way home, she ends up running into this other girl, which was part of the Bordeaux family, and she dropped what she was doing to take her to their ailing father who was going to die. So if she didn't drop what she was doing to go see her father, she wouldn't be able to see her ailing, dying father. And so they wanted to repay her back for that. So Sasha was one of the sisters, goes over there to pay her because she said no, I won't take any money. Just give the money to my dad. And so he shows up with all this money, and then she realizes, that's the Red Ogre, and she gets all like excited and wants to train her to him. And then then Helvelica shows up and says, "Who is the new family leader? Marry me." No, she wanted to recruit him, and then eventually she's like, "Okay, then fine, then marry me," or something like that. And he's like, "No, I'm not doing it." Dad's like, "No, I don't want to be a part of nobles." Sorry. Who was Ilya? Who did Ilya end up being? Charlotte. Who was her? What was her story? Because I always got a kick out of the fact that she looks like Ilya from Iliasfil from Fate.
She was effectively priestess? No, she was a saint, and the church. Effectively, the world turned on this particular church. I'm guessing it was corrupt or something like that.
Most likely. So if it's an anime, it's probably a corrupt church.
The church was corrupt. Somehow this ended up killing her parents, and she ended up getting kind of turned against the church, and so she became the basically the saint of the evil people. And so she was being hired by the not Bordeaux, the other noble who's attacking the Bordeaux, and they were using her.
Bordeaux back in the picture.
Yeah, and then the ogre Belgrieve ended up saving the Bordeaux, and of course she was in there, and he gave her a big
married.
He gave her a big hug, and that made her change her ways.
Saved Ilya just by hugging her.
Yeah, just by hugging.
The power of Papa hug. I will admit that, like, my biggest driving force for watching the show initially was Belgrieve. I thought his side of it was super good. The thing that obviously drove me away from watching it was because I got kind of tired of Anji and how not the whole, like I said, the joke was the idea that eventually in the light novel they marry. But honest truth was I just couldn't stand how repetitive Anji was. And that could hopefully have changed over time, but I couldn't stand it.
It's one of those frustrating things that I guess I had a higher tolerance for because it didn't bother me.
You had a little bit more immunity than I did. I was still fresh off of the last one,
and it didn't bother me as much. I didn't.
Well, I mean, you watched the other show that I couldn't really stand with that. No, that wasn't really a problem there. It was I do anything for my daughter or something like that. I don't know. It's not like specifically the. I don't mind the dad con thing. It's just. And I do understand that it's a lot with this story seemingly to be just admiration.
Yeah.
She admires. I mean, if she's looking for a wife for her dad, it's not as if she loves him. She admires her father a lot. This is the guy that she's always looked up to. This guy's strong.
Well, and
obviously for a good reason, because he is extremely strong.
Yeah,
his side of it was really his feeling inadequate. Look at my daughter. She's doing what I could never do. But in actuality, he's really powerful.
Yeah, it becomes more and more clear as the episodes go. I mean, it doesn't flat out show him as OP, because he goes up against the silver heroes, and they kind of imply that they beat him, but at the same time they acknowledge his strength. So it's one of those really cool kind of notes of, yes, okay, because the entire time you're kind of getting the implication that he is very strong, but Angie is not. She's still kind of green, and so she kind of makes silly mistakes, and that's like even when the Bordeaux, they have one of their guys says, "Oh yeah, well I can beat the Red Ogre," and he goes up against him, and he does something silly, and obviously because he's probably pretty green as well, and it's like you have all these hints that yes, he's strong, but at the same time he's experienced, and then when he goes up against the silver heroes, you're sitting there going, okay, maybe he actually is strong, and then you go on. Things are also happening later on, and it's interesting to as like Andrew's saying, Red Ogre's side is very interesting. Angie is kind of like the Red Ogre is where you actually will get your kind of character study, and Angie is kind of like more exploring the world itself, where you're kind of getting the implication that there is what the demon lords are, and why do they matter? Why is Angie so strong? What is Charlotte? How does Charlotte fit into the big picture? So there's a lot of really cool things that are kind of happening kind of on the sidelines, but it doesn't really feel like it's dragging the story out into the forefront. It's more along the lines of Angie complaining about how she wants to go see Daddy and how she's always going to go and do a quest because the quest, the guild leader really sucks at his job.
Yeah, he really sucks at his job. She had to literally force him to do it. He's like, yeah, I got some more people because you got onto me. I was like, dang, dude.
Either way,
she running the place apparently now.
Either way, I generally enjoyed the show. It's fun.
Yeah, that's my daughter left and came back as an S rank. Did I finish? I think I finished our dating story.
Should I have gone back?
Yeah. No,
No? Okay.
Our dating story, The Experienced You and the Inexperienced Me, which is done by ENGI, based on a light novel, drama, romance, slice of life. This story follows Ryoto, and Ryoto, at the very beginning, he likes this one girl named Runa, and she's like a gyaru in his class, super beautiful. But of course, he knows his place. He ain't gonna say anything. And at some point, he is hanging out with his friends, and his friends are like his only bastion, like the bastion of hope. Like these guys that hang out with me, I never want to lose them, kind of thing. And at some point, they do a punishment game where they have him do something, and it was to confess to a girl that he likes. And he's like, I don't really have anybody like that. And he immediately thinks of Runa, and he's like, okay, never mind, I do have one. And he's like, he doesn't want to lose them as friends, and so he feels like he has to do this. So he ends up confronting Runa and saying, hey, will you go out with me? And she's like, sure, I ain't going out with anybody right now. I have some free time. Let's go out. And that completely shocks him because she actually accepted it. So he starts to go out with her, and immediately goes to her place, and she immediately starts to undress because she assumes this is what guys want, because she's, like the title leads you to believe, she's experienced. Every boyfriend she's had in the past pretty much just wants her for her body. At some point they get tired of her, they discard her, and they move on to the next girl. And so she's been kind of used and discarded. So what kind of turns from this is you have Ryoto, who has no experience in dating or relationships or girls in general, or at least as they're implying with that whole title, in bed, versus his new girlfriend, Runa, who has had experience in relationship, but the worst experience in relationships. The idea of somebody that goes out with you and just wants you for your body, and the moment they get tired of you and your body, they go on to the next girl. So Runa often has like really bad ideas of what men want and what expectations men have of her. And Ryoto is constantly having to essentially correct her in what he wants of her. Because like you'll have a situation where they go out dating together, and he immediately goes, what do you like to do when you date? Or like, what store do you want to go to? And she immediately goes, wait, I've never asked that before. Like, they usually want me to basically be at their side as they go do this one thing, and they don't care what I want in the date. It's those kind of things. It kind of becomes a little more tragic later on when you get this feeling that while Ryoto is experiencing new things with Runa, like they go out to the festival together, and he's like, this is my first time at a festival. And she literally breaks down because she's like, I wish I could have all these experiences with you for the first time, but in actuality, I've done them with other people. And she's now acknowledging that those wasted first-time experiences with all those men were wasted because they never actually cared for her. Now she's realizing Ruto is the real deal, and she wishes that she could have had those first times for him. And so it kind of turns one of those things where he's having to reassure her, look, no, this is going to be our first time, and try to really kind of correct her mindset in the whole situation. All the while, outside of them, you have situations like Runa's sister, who is at first a psychopath. For some reason, at some point, they decide to not make her a psychopath anymore and really kind of explain her in a different way, which didn't really make sense to me, but maybe I missed the concept there. But early on, it's really like this sister that hates that Runa got everything that she couldn't have, and she's jealous. And, oh yeah, by the way, she turned down Ruto in the past, and now she wants to be his boyfriend or girlfriend. And there's a friend of Runa who doesn't trust that Ryoto is going to take care of her and that he's another one of these bad boys and all that kind of stuff. Getting into Runa, again, her expectations of relationships and why she really kind of jumped into those relationships. Because yes, there is a question mark of, from face value, you think Gyaru, Ditz, she's sleeping with all these guys. She obviously doesn't seem to pay much mind to what she's doing. Why wouldn't she get these men are treating her terribly? Why wouldn't she get what a real relationship is? And there is technically, I've heard that it's better explained in the light novel, but there is a decent explanation as to why she is so acceptant of these relationships, and what her expectations are for relationships is sort of passed down by her parents, which is decent for a story like this. So my thoughts. That kind of gets into it mostly is at face value, it being sort of the perfect waifu, seemingly dull guy gets the hottest girl in the school to accept a relationship with them, and they have fun together. And we all find out how great the male protagonist character is per every other relationship because he's not a dirtbag. All the while he goes, no, I can't touch those things because I want you to be ready for it. And she doesn't understand what the hell that even means because she's always accepted it. It was kind of one of those funny things of like, I don't want to force you into these kind of situations. I want you to want to bed me. But I don't know what that means because I always just bed the guys immediately. It's like, when does it actually happen? I don't know. But that kind of plays into what I think this one does well versus a lot of these shows, is that it is technically a broken person versus somebody that's completely inexperienced coming together. And there is sort of a nice dynamic that the two of them make. I think Runa and Ryoto's story together is decent. The issue with this series comes around the supporting cast. There was some good stuff with Nikoro, her best friend, Runa's best friend. I think there was some good stuff around her and her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. Decent stuff there. The show was really bogged down, especially hard by Maria, the sister. She was horrible, or at least her portrayal in this series was absolutely horrible. Just logic and breaking things, and it was just straight up dumb. It was where the melodrama was. Like, I hate melodrama, and she was literally the embodiment of melodrama. From the moment she shows up to the moment they corrected her, was absolutely frustrating. So once that whole thing got resolved, which was literally by the end of the show, it was less annoying, but for the most part, she was kind of a stain in the series. But yeah, besides Maria, it was a decent show. Again, a very decent take on a Gyaru series, a decent take on the misconceptions of what is expected of a significant other and relationships and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, it does have a little bit of a cringe value to it in how these characters kind of see how things play out. Some of it feels like, why is this such a shock to you? Why does this not seem like normal understanding for most people? That stuff was kind of frustrating to kind of deal with, where they're trying to be very heavy with some very basic concepts of relationships that I believe is pretty common knowledge. Like, this isn't rocket science, but they're trying to play it up as being something extremely significant, which I guess you can attribute to somebody being in relationship wise broken, like mistreated, and thus feeling that this is a normal thing. It kind of harkens to something like Higehiro, where you have this girl who just feels like, this isn't right unless I do this one thing because they all want this one thing. But yeah, in the end, it was a solid show. I won't say it's one of those shows where I wouldn't tell anybody to go out of their way. Like, it's a good show if you're just looking for a solid, like a Gyaru show. If you're looking for the type of shows where it's in the realm of the perfect waifu. I don't think it is technically in the realm of the perfect waifu because it is a cute, hot Gyaru, but it kind of feels like it's more focused on the drama than what those typically do. Like, typically with these perfect waifu girls, it's all about like how cute they are and shenanigans surrounding it, and sometimes, often cases, around comedy and misunderstandings around them. But this one was more focused on drama and, like I said, a sprinkle of melodrama with the sister. So that's our dating story, the experienced you and the inexperienced me. What else do we want to do today? Let's get this Berserk of Gluttony crap out of the way. I don't even want to bother with it later. Berserk of Gluttony ran for 12 episodes, done by ACGT. Source is light novel, action, adventure, drama, fantasy, romance. Apparently, there's romance somewhere in there. This one takes place in a world where this goddess showed up and gave all of mankind, every person in the world, all is birthed with some sort of skill. And that sort of led to the element of the haves and have-nots, those that have the good skills and those that have terrible skills. We open up with Fate Graphite, who has such one crappy skill, and that is gluttony. He's always hungry. His stomach is always growling, and he always has to eat something. And he is commissioned into this group of knights, and these knights are the ones that have all the good skills, and they protect the people. And a lot of them mistreat the people, but they have to accept it because they have the good skills. So there's kind of a oppression happening because they have the good skills. And he is one time guarding this one post, and this one girl, which is like one of the only knights that's actually nice to him, Roxy, she shows up, and he realizes, or he takes over his post, and then he ends up hearing, he sees a thief running into the castle, tells Roxy, she goes in to kill them. One of them flees and runs into Fate. He just somehow manages to stab the guy as he's running past him and kills the guy. And his skill actually activates. Come to find out, he's got to kill things. And whenever he kills things, the gluttony skill activates, and it takes skills from them and also stats. So that's kind of unique in the idea that most people, they'll kill and level up by gaining experience. He just literally consumes all skills and stats from the person when he kills them. The downside that we find out later is that the more he consumes, the more he needs to consume bigger things and bigger things and bigger things. And if he doesn't consume, he goes berserk. So, yeah, he ends up getting more and more powerful, ends up getting more skills, ends up finding a sword that can consume his stats, which is called Greed, that talks to him. And then eventually Roxy gets sent off to this place where her father died, where she's supposed to go die as well. So he ends up going and following her to this place that has all these big monsters, and runs into other members of the 7 Deadly Sins, because we're going to get in that whole greed and gluttony and lust and all those other 7 Deadly Sins, because this is doing that. And all the while, some guy wants to get immortality in the background. Did they ever do anything with that?
No.
I don't think they did. I know they showed him again.
He just has the philosopher.
He found it.
Yeah, he has the philosopher's stone, and he's cackling as a bad guy.
There was a lot of things that was kind of left undone at the end. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, Fate, we need you for something else. All right, cool. Off to adventure again. All right, whatever that is. So your thoughts?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. It's one of those that
the moments with mine were great.
Yeah.
That's about all I can give this show. Literally all I can give this show is I just liked mine. The rest of the show, I don't even know why I even finished it. I think at some point I was like, I just need to finish it.
Yeah, I just need to finish it.
No, for the longest time, I just wanted to see mine. And when mine finally showed up, it was like, okay, I guess I can kind of go, and then I'll just finish it.
This show bumped into an issue very fast.
Stat numbers. Like, it was good until they went off to that vineyard, and then at some point after that vineyard, it was like, these numbers mean nothing to me anymore.
Yeah,
we're the numbers are just going off the screen now.
And then, well, even
at some point they got into breaking the caps. That was I literally almost laughed. It was what was it called? They had a name for it, and it makes sense to the calculations. The E-stat, the E-stage or something like that. There was this point in which they realized, like, they cap out. And he was at this point where he was capped out. And they were literally telling him, you can never get stronger until you break past that cap. And so he got angry and he broke past the cap. It was like, there was several parts to the later part where I was like, I don't even care anymore, because we're just breaking past the cap.
Oh, is that what they meant by
angry.
the E domain?
Yeah, E domain.
Oh my gosh.
And then literally they played into this thing where if he gets too much stats, if he kills too big of things, he will eventually lose his mind. Like, this happens to everybody with gluttony. You're going to eventually lose your mind. And they literally have it, like, they go into that, and the resolve for it was so stupid. Like, the resolve for it was so stupid. It was like playing up like, this is terrible. Eventually, you're going to lose your mind. It's happening. Never mind. Never mind. Hug. It's fixed. Okay, never mind. Off to next adventure. I don't know. It's one of those things where there is an early draw to the series, and that is the idea of this person that can never have a quenched thirst. Like, they so heavily imply early on about how, like, he's eventually going to get to the point where he can't get something bigger, and he's going to always have that thirst. And if he doesn't quench it, like, they even get this idea that he can't just kill goblins. Like early on, he's just killing goblins, and at some point, his eyes start glowing. He's like, "What's the deal?" And he's like, "You have to kill something bigger. You can never quench your thirst on these ever again." Because yeah, the immediate assumption is, okay, I'll just kill a goblin every day, and I'll never have to worry about the curse, because it's technically a curse. Even though he's just getting like a massive bonus from it, it's also an unquenchable thirst. And it kind of plays in that idea of like, yeah, what if at some point he can never stop it? And yeah, technically he could kill certain people and get extremely overpowered abilities, but is that morally right? No, it's not really. It is technically playing in a very dark gray area, but it's one of those ones where, well, yes, there's a few kills that were kind of like, oh, wow, he actually did that. Like, I was actually surprised that they actually went the route of him killing this individual. But at some point, it just kind of becomes just too much. Like, it strays away from the gravity of the situation, I guess, and moves more in the realm of just him hitting bigger numbers. Yeah. Like, it just turns into a power fantasy at some point. Like I said, that the whole E stage and the capping out and killing this massive dude, and suddenly, oh my gosh, he's gonna lose himself. But no, not.
Yeah,
really.
I didn't put the E domain together with the calculator E. I
it's
totally
just breaking past the digits, man. It can't go past 99999. It's gotta break past that stage.
That is what it is when you go through. I want to say, what was it, 4th or 5th episode, when you start seeing, okay, the numbers are just getting too stupid at this point.
Like I said, it seemed like it was right after that whole vineyard scene where he went down that little like ravine, because Mind told him that he can have those, and it was like it was still fine because he could see that
I want to say it was the
less
cocoon
than these numbers.
That was the first one that I seen that it was like, okay, the
cocoon was that was gone.
The numbers are
gone
absurd now. And it points to the biggest issue of this. I liked the concept. I really did. I just wanted a simple balancing. I like the kind of concept of the 7 deadly sins. I kind of wanted a not necessarily gluttony working with greed. I kind of wanted to have a seven characters that are the 7 deadly sins, and each one of them have a weapon that is one of the 7 deadly sins. I kind of like the concept of that. We bumping into envy or bumping into lust and wrath and sloth. I kind of like this concept of how these all play out. And going against each other. Some of them, their values may not align with each other, or some of them may be opportunistic. I like the concept of kind of dealing with kind of a balancing between good and evil, and kind of the morality between the two, and how you can play into that. I liked how they did a lot of that. Especially with like Fate against one of the Holy Knights, and okay, well, he's using his power, even though he's technically a quote unquote Holy Knight, he's using his powers for evil, and plays into that. And I kind of like how they did that. And then, well, okay, what is considered one of the 7 deadly sins, using his power for kind of a in his situation, he would be an avenger or a vigilante, but technically he technically the good guy, even though he's doing it the bad way. All these things are interesting, and they are playing out in this weird, interesting kind of world that they were building. But like I said, the stat values became a little absurd, and at some point it just became. The numbers on the screen don't mean anything, because number one, you have Fate, who's overpowered, and you have Greed, who's pretty much multiplying whatever his power is by about 20 or 30 times. So it doesn't even matter, because his numbers could be what?
Yeah, because he's basically Greed like literally will not let him carry him very long unless he gives him stats. Like that's their pact. If you don't feed me your stats, you will me anymore. And it was like this whole thing of like, he's literally stat dumping onto Greed. So he's resetting a lot, but he's becoming more powerful, so thus it doesn't really matter. But I did like that aspect, the idea of he at some point realizes that he's going to become dangerous, so he says he dumps his stats. Is if I lose myself, at least I won't have any stats, so I can't harm anybody. That was kind of a cool little thing there. I think we both kind of hit it pretty well in our first impressions, and it's something I do want to mention is that I think this show's biggest weakness is its characters. I had no care for really, like I said, I liked Mine's design. Like basically Mine is like Altria from Fate Go. It's basically a ripoff of that design. Great tan and all that kind of stuff. Great design. I like her demeanor. She just wants to eat things. She's always hungry. And even the chemistry with him, a couple scenes was really fun. The idea, like, she did something that kind of bugged him, so he ended up drawing on her face when she fell asleep. I just don't care. Like, Fate is just kind of very blah. Like, I don't feel like I didn't feel like I cared about what his goal was. And most of the time it was just to help Roxy, because Roxy was the only person that was ever nice to him. Roxy just seemed like she's a good person. And I didn't really get any feeling of her character. Edis was like, I didn't have no sense whatsoever of her character, because she literally shows up for like, 3 scenes.
Yeah, I was going to say, she didn't do that much, so I don't know why you would get anything
bad
from her.
guys. And then, the Roxy's cohorts, one of them is obsessed with her and doesn't want Fate anywhere near her. I didn't care for anybody. Like, even Greed and Fate's chemistry was the same. Like, the entire show was the same. It was always, stop talking to me when I'm with other people, because I keep yelling back at you, and everybody goes, why are you yelling at me? And he's like, no, I'm not talking to you. And then it's just they're partners.
Ivo.
I got nothing out of the characters, and I think that was its biggest weakness. I didn't even care what happened to Roxy in the end. Like, it's like, yeah, she's cute, she's a good person, but I don't feel anything for the character. She lost her dad. I guess that's kind of sad, but I don't think the show did well enough in really getting me connected to the characters. Like, it was so focused on stats and fighting and the next target and getting to this new location and traveling for a little bit with Mine, which, again, I said had a few great moments between Fate and Mine, but not really. And it doesn't help that, like, so much of the show feels like it's copied from other content. The names, the designs, even some of the characters, like, they literally have this guy that he runs into that looks like the butler guy from ReZero, and sure enough, he's a swordsman.
Roxy Heartfilia. I got it. I got it.
Roxy Heartfilia. It's just, I don't know. It just, I think that's his biggest weakness. And I think that's the troubling thing about it, is I just didn't really care about anybody. So, yeah. Anything else on Berserk of Gluttony?
No.
Nope. Should we wrap? What should we wrap up things with? I guess. Let's do it.
I don't hate it. I'm not going to jump on your... the last episode, was a mess, but I'm not going to jump on your bandwagon of hating on this show. I like the show.
Let's leave things off with the most popular show on Mal probably right now, and I don't know why. The Rising of the Shield Hero Season 3, or Tate no Yusha no Naregare Season 3, ran on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes. Do we need to explain this story? Guy gets summoned to another world with a bunch of other dudes. Each one is being like these different weapons: the sword hero, the bow hero, the spear hero.
Such a sour face.
And he does. He's got such a revengey Sekai face. But yeah, he's one of them, and he was summoned at the Shield Hero, which is they're like, we don't even need you because you're Shield Hero. Nobody needs a Shield Hero. He gets kind of double crossed by the princess of the kingdom that like claims that he did something. He forced himself upon her. He ends up getting treated terribly. Somehow gets revenge at some point, rises back up, and she ends up getting exiled. He goes to a trade to buy a cute Tanuki girl. Raftelia is able to link to her so that he essentially is building her up and her stats and everything like that. She gets stronger, becomes his partner, ends up getting us chicken goddess girl Philo, who's super cute as well, from an egg, and raises her, and eventually gets the bow heroes discarded Rishia. They end up traveling to another alternate world where they run into a lot of heroes over there. Get traveled back again, and this season 3 is following the death of the sacred big gigantic CGI turtle, and they're awaiting the moment that the Phoenix is going to show up. So the next big probably CGI monsters, probably another CGI monstrosity is going to show up. They're going to have to fight, which is the Phoenix, and so they're building up now. Naofumi is building up his village. It's getting stronger. He has to go and save a bunch of kids from the trade. Ends up running into the sword hero, who turns into a whiny bag. Runs into well, he was told by, what was her name? The dinosaur chicken goddess chick. What was her name? I forget her name. But anyways, there's this chicken goddess dinosaur thing that is the current goddess, and Philo apparently is going to replace her at some point. She told Naofumi at some point, "You heroes need to get your crap together," because like they don't like each other. Well, they don't. They all seem to not like Naofumi. I don't know if we've ever gotten what the sword hero thinks of the lance hero or the bow hero.
They don't much care for each other.
But they're not working together. They're all doing their own thing. She told them
because they can't work together. But
she told them, you have to come together, because if you don't, you're not gonna beat the waves. You're not gonna beat this Phoenix and stuff. If you don't come together, if you don't show me that you're coming together, I'm going to kill you all so they can summon another set. So Naofumi she literally is forcing Naofumi to have to get these kids to grow up and fight alongside him. So that's been mostly this season, is him getting the sword hero and the bow hero, and the lance hero just fell in love with Philo, so that's working. And yeah, he saved I was gonna go into the whole thing. I'm not gonna do it yet. Atla and Full. He saves these two kids, this brother and sister, and apparently Atla is somehow connected to the staff hero, which we haven't totally gotten to yet. Yeah, and he's building up his army. He gets a dragon. The dragon goes crazy for a little bit. Get a little bit of closure for the sword hero. And yeah, that last episode happened. So what's your thoughts? Oh yeah, the last episode, the writer decides to pull like some crap out of his butt and just decide to make a different storyline that they want to get into first before they get into the Phoenix. So he decided to like just reach right down in there and just pull out the story out of nowhere that makes zero logical sense. But that's where Naofumi's going. And it almost seemed like they were going to announce a fourth season at the end. Did you notice that?
Oh, they must have had to.
They showed a logo, and it had the 3. So it was like,
and then it blew away.
And it blew away. Yeah. And that was it. So it's like, are we... I know what it is. You heard it here first. That was a tease that they're going to reboot the whole thing. They're just going to start over. They're going to do like One Piece. They're just going to start from episode 1 again, and it's going to be Wit Studio. Mark my words. That was what the tease was. Now, everybody's like, wait, what? Because your assumption is 4 or something pops up on the screen, or the movie. Yeah. Probably these days is going to be the movie. No, it was literally them saying, "Now let's start over."
There you go.
Episode 1 again. You guys hated how we handled the whole second season, so we're just going to start all over. Mark it.
There you go. Andrew's got it figured out.
So when that happens,
and of course this is going to be done by master storytellers rather than these guys, so it's going to be much, much better.
They're just going to get a completely new, like, original author.
So they're
just going to get Junior Bucci to write the whole thing over again.
Junior Bucci rewrite the whole thing.
And it's not actually Junior Bucci.
It's going to be brutal.
It's going to be...
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be created by Junior Bucci, but it'll be actually script work by somebody else. They're just going to put Junior Bucci's name on it. That way everyone gets excited for it. So give us some positivity, Chris, because Andrew's throwing shade already.
I really did like it. I kind of wish that it got more in depth in a lot of the things, and that's one of the probably the most frustrating aspects of it for me is that it kind of feels constantly like it's skimming over the top. I would really love to kind of deep dive into kind of more of the dragons, how the dragons are fitting into this. The getting into kind of the actual stats and understanding why each one of these characters are kind of going into different detail things of what they're doing. There's a lot of those aspects that I would really love to deep dive into. Getting into
it is kind of interesting that it seems like out of nowhere characters pops back up and they've been trained, and now suddenly they're doing like some crazy attacks and stuff like that. Like, I mean, they sort of explain the idea that it seems like there is these hidden powers within each one of them, and that seems to be being unlocked because they are aligning themselves up with Naofumi.
Yeah,
they have to go to this shrine, and it links them to Naofumi, and it resets them back to the beginning, but they have more growth potential. And it seems like the assumption is that the growth potential is going into them having these inherent traits and skills that they're able to use. But like with Ata, it's like that whole situation where he's like, don't use that because we don't know what it does. But she keeps doing it, and it's like super OP, and it's like, but what makes her that? Is it her tie-in to what possibly could be to the staff hero, whatever his name was? Or is it something else? Is it stuff that's awakening that they don't know until they actually build themselves up after being connected to Naofumi?
The staff hero, he's just intrigued by her because she looks like somebody that he knows in her past.
But I was wondering if there's another connection there.
She's getting trained under the same lady that's training Risha.
Yeah, the old lady.
Yeah, the old lady.
But it seems like their capabilities are different.
That's
she has
because
her own traits.
Right. That's because they're the white tigers.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's what they kind of implied anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, that goes to your point, is that we don't know the exact reasoning. Like that, why these... I mean, we'll find out why Raftelli apparently is special. But I don't know, that could be possibly tied in with the whole katana thing that they came out of nowhere within the second season. But yeah, is it as simple as the idea that they're just out of nowhere they have these super traits, and are they're not the main cardinal heroes, but the individual weapon heroes and stuff like that? Or is it something else special about it?
I just figure the staff hero is going to hand Atla the staff at some point and just be done with it. I don't know why we have to just keep going back to the staff hero. Why does anybody care about the stupid staff hero? He should have been gone a long time ago, just like the daughter. The stupid daughter needs to move on a long time ago. Why are all the freaking heroes obsessed with that stupid daughter?
Oh my gosh, dude, don't even get me started. Finish your review first.
You got me off on the stupid rant. I didn't want to rant. I like the show. I like this story. I kind of don't like a couple characters in the story that I wish would go away by now.
There is like this weird, like I really do wonder if the writer's just obsessed with mine. Like it's kind of like Rent a Girlfriend. You know, the Rent a Girlfriend author is obsessed.
Let me prove that she's really a good girl. You're just misunderstanding her. No, she's really, really a good girl.
See, he's like the sword hero.
Wait until
everybody understands.
Wait until they try to redeem her. Andrew is going to freak.
I don't think this writer is clever enough to think about something like that. But I mean, it would solidify that if he does eventually try to. I honestly thought that was a possibility doing that before, because it seemed like she was obviously working with the spear hero, and I thought that was going to be where it was going to come from. Is at some point through the spear hero, she was going to like correct her ways or something like that. But that's giving the writer too much credit. I honestly. And I had this feeling in the second season as well. I think that late in the first season's core, when they had the whole like super crazy church thing and everything like that, that was just bogging down. I realized at that point, and it was solidified in the second season with the book hero. And it's again with every single one of the heroes in the third season. This writer sucks at villains. He's always sucked at villains, and he's always going to suck at villains. And mine is like a primer example of that. It's like, Mine is going around, and they all know what Mine did from the very beginning, because she went on a trial and they figured out that she was wrong. She got assigned the name B. They stripped her of her title. Like, she is Garbo. But yet she's going around and talking, and they're explaining it in the idea that I thought it was going to be something else. Like, there was going to be something else that Mine has. But they never really said. It's just simply that because the sword hero and because the bow hero And because the spirit, all of them failed miserably with the turtle, lost their parties and stuff, and the society hates them. And she comes in there and just whispers a couple words in their ears, and they're suddenly convinced that Naofumi's the bad guy, and that they have to go do crazy bad stuff for her because she's the only one that understands them. Okay. And why are they so dead set on believing her? like what is this? What is this writing? That was pretty much why I didn't enjoy most of this season. Like, the beginning segments were okay, and then the moment that it got into the sword hero and the spear hero and the bow hero, that stuff was just super cringy and just dumb. Everything around Naofumi and him building up the village and his partners, fine. Much better than the second season. I enjoyed all that stuff. Getting stronger, building up the characters, building up each one of the characters that he's kind of saved, like I said, with the two siblings and the dragon and all that kind of stuff. That stuff was fine. It's just everything around the other heroes. It's terrible writing, in my opinion. It's just very terrible writing. And then the butthole that the writer did at the very end last episode was absolutely ridiculous, and it was the stupidest thing I've ever watched on television ever. Like, I literally yelled at the screen, I cannot believe you're doing this. None of this makes any sense. I won't spoil it, but I will say, without spoiling things, you're telling me these dudes have been watching her since before she was born because the current person doesn't want her to rise up. They've been watching her since before she was born, as her mother was carrying her, fleeing from the Empire, and they never thought, let's just kill her now, rather than wait for an excuse because she wore certain clothes. It was the most dumb thing I have ever watched.
I have to admit, Andrew.
I texted him.
Andrew texted
and
me.
said that was stupid. And you thought what?
I was about ready to go, Andrew,
you overreacting.
You're overreacting.
You. And then Andrew, I went, you're always
crap.
Overreacting, Andrew.
No, wait. No,
that was bad.
I remember.
That was bad.
I was screaming at the TV too. I was mad. I was like, why are we doing this? There's never been a hint of this in the entire story. Nothing. No. Oh, this character might be this. And no hints of that. The entire we're what 40 episodes into it, and no hint. No. Right now, we're randomly just dropping this bomb. Like,
and now Fumi's like, so you're telling me they watched when this happened to the village? I'm like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like, it's almost like now Fumi's going like, are you seriously telling me, writer, that they were watching while they were just burning down the whole village? And I'm like, no, now Fumi, stop right there. Don't say the next line. Don't say how it makes you mad because they didn't help. Your question is, and why didn't they just kill her then? Like, it's not like I think that Naofumi would be okay with the idea these dudes would have assassinated her back then. It's more of a like, but logically, why wouldn't they have? Like, and why would they care? Yeah, that's the other question. Like, why would they care? They want her dead. But it's like, it's fine as a story arc. I'm fine with them going off to this other place.
Yeah.
And I agree with some people. I like his reaction. He's tit. Like, it's like, that's the other funny thing is like, he literally even says, I know technically we should be doing this whole like, I don't know, preparing for the Phoenix thing that's going to end the whole world, but I'm mad. And I'm going to go off and just tell them what for. Plus, we technically can't prepare with assassins coming after us all the time, who's been watching this whole time, doesn't change anything. And yeah, for some reason, they're like having trouble with these guys. Like these are all like cardinal heroes and stuff like that. They're like, but our hero powers don't work against them. You're just really trying hard to write this into situation, aren't you? Because if they weren't a threat, then he'd be like, whatever, we have to prepare for the Phoenix things. Every now and then, somebody needs to throw a rock at a tree because there's going to probably be somebody in there. And then somebody's like, are you sure? Oh yeah, sure, there was a guy inside the tree. He just fell out because I just threw a rock at it and knocked him out completely. It was dumb. It was really dumb. So yeah, in the end, like I said, I think it's a massive step up from season 2, but that's not saying much because season 2, besides like a certain part of it, was not good in my opinion. I loved everything around Raftalia and her cute new outfit, but yeah, it was a massive step up. But I still, everything around the other heroes, the sad thing is, here's a sad thing, because it always comes down to why I'm still watching it is because I do like certain elements of this series. Like I said, I like Naofumi and his little band. The characters around Naofumi are great. It's just every antagonist, every person that is against Naofumi always seems poorly wrote. Again, everything around the other heroes this entire season has been absolutely comically bad. But I like everything around Naofumi and his partners. Now, as long as they can focus on that stuff, I continue to enjoy it. I'm still... The sad thing is that I kind of want to enjoy the other things like the other heroes. I wish the writing around them was better because I like that element. I like that idea of... Now, Fumi has... Obviously, at this point, he has proven that he is the only one that these people can trust. Now, there is still some people, like the staff dude, doesn't like Naofumi, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I like the idea of the heroes that never could work together coming together to work together. I just wished it was under more interesting circumstances they finally come together than just, you were wronged by mine and there's this, she was using you, so come join the village that I have.
I like
Oh, I'm sorry. Spear Hero fell in love with Philo. That was
freaking
whatever.
Freaking Motoyasu's
Father, I will prove myself to you, Father.
I mean,
she is
of
cute, but chill, dude.
No.
She's adorable, but chill, dude.
No, one of the cool things about the heroes in general, and I kind of wish that it was kind of displayed a little bit better in the show, is the concept that each one of the heroes, while each one of them are a different type of weapon, each hero is a different type of heroism. So you have basically Naofumi, who is effectively defending your people. That's that type of hero. In particular, the bow hero is kind of a reflection of justice. I'm trying to remember what
I don't know what Matayasu would be, but
Monteyasu is Brotherhood. He's
yeah, I guess,
because each one of he had the strongest band of friendship type, and he's constantly trying to be the pretty boy type thing. Rin, Rin was the Brotherhood. Monteyasu was the
Yeah, I don't know what you're going with the Ren and Motoyasu. I mean, Ren's story was a lot of the idea of being the hero himself, but I'm not sure what that would be in regards to a positive element. It was a lot of pride within him.
Yes.
But Motoyasu...
Well, that was the whole point of his justice, that he was constantly just bulldozing through, and that was the whole problem, which was causing all the issues. Is
yeah, I mean, looking back, like his video games. You go over there and kill the dragon. You don't think about the repercussions around it. You just kill the dragon. I mean, the dragon just spawns once you poke the sword into it, and it goes away. You don't have to worry about getting rid of the corpse. What?
Oh, well, and each one of those, that's a cool character study that I hope really does find an ultimate resolution. I mean,
that was a rare win with this season. I did like the idea of, yes, Ren essentially understanding that what he did wasn't necessarily his fault entirely. He was used, but it is one of those elements of, like, he did do something technically that was kind of tragic, especially for the daughter. Yeah, I guess a rare moment there where I'm like, that was kind of cool. Can't really say the same for the other ones though. Like Matsuyasu and Bow hero, I forget his name, didn't really care so much for their stories though.
Well,
yeah,
the
Rin
bow,
was solid at the end.
the bow hero is effectively probably going into the realm of vigilante justice, and that might be what I'm saying is not necessarily
the bow hero became Batman.
Yeah, pretty much.
Batman.
I'm not necessarily saying that I trust the writer to do really well with a lot of this. I'm just saying that these could be good things if they actually kind of incorporate that into the main storyline as they come closer to Naofumi, because obviously they're not completely on 100% with Naofumi right yet, but they're slowly kind of pulling together, and that's probably what will ultimately make them the hero team per se. But each one of them are going to have to go through some kind of character study, and that each one of them represents a different type of heroism. And I think that could be an interesting character study if they go that route, especially since they're technically hitting their lows right now.
Yeah, and we can't wait for the bow hero to be broken, because he got totally broken by his whole ordeal. He's got the whole Deadeye thing going wrong. She's like, we gotta help too. Okay. It's like they're gonna do the whole Deadeye bow hero thing, and Rishi's gotta fix him. It's like, oh, this is so cheesy. Come on,
Rishi's gotta fix him.
Rishi's gotta fix him. Show him how to pluck some apples for a little bit, and eventually he'll be perfectly fine. At least Larisha is not unbearable anymore. I was kind of frustrated a little bit by her, but she turned out to be a solid character. So. Like I said, a lot of the positive characters around Naofumi are solid. It's just the antagonist. Like I wish this writer would. I hope eventually the writer gets better at this stuff. So as it is, at least I like the idea that it seems like collectively, it seems like everybody's on the same page that the last episode was a butt pull, like it just right out the butt. Like, and this came out of nowhere. It seems like most people can acknowledge at least that. So we're all coming together on one thing. We all can agree that with Andrew on his take of at least the antagonist characters for sure.
I don't know what you're talking about. But if that episode never happened.
It never happened. It's like it's the last episode of WEP now. It's the Wonder Egg priority situation. That never happened. Anyways, I guess we can call it there. By the way, thank you, Sabanasu. As we're sitting here talking and doing a recording, decided to up for the Otaku Spirit Club on YouTube, which is the 13th month. Jeez, dude. But yeah, anyways, that's it for, I guess, this one. I'm not sure how many we went through. Hopefully it was a decent amount so that we're not going to do 15 parts, but we'll see. We'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this set of reviews for the fall 2023 anime season. Again, we probably have 2 or 3 more, or 1 or 2 more of these to wrap up the season. But hope you guys enjoyed. As always, if you did, whatever platform you're on, make sure to give us a thumbs up, like, all that kind of stuff. If you're on like YouTube or whatever, leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on these particular shows. But we appreciate you guys checking us out. We hope you guys enjoyed this reviews. Again, we're at otakuspirit.com. That's where all of our links are. Social media links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us, Patreon, tips, links, all that kind of stuff. Greatly appreciate everybody's support. And until the next time, y'all take care.
Os.